Welcome to Waiting on the Trade, a comics book club for people who can't keep up with monthly comics. I'm Matt Ledger.
I'm Patrick Fitzgerald Fleck.
This month, we're talking about the first volume of Monstress, a beautiful, dark steampunk fantasy series by Marjorie Liu, Takeda, and Russ Wooton. Now, in case you need a refresher, Monstress is the story of Micah Halfwolf, a teenager dealing with both a troubled past and a literal monster living inside her. In this volume, Micah searches for information about the creature bonded to her soul and runs afoul of several groups, lots of groups, who want to use that bond to their own ends.
She has a rough time.
There's a lot of groups. Pat, just you and me this time.
Yeah.
Chatting about comics.
You said, what comic do you want to read? And I read this. Let's talk about this. And so we're doing it.
Where did you find this book?
I mean, probably from a list of like the best comics of 2021 or whenever this came out.
So I know you like that NPR like top 100 list.
Man, do I ever.
I would be surprised if this wasn't on it, given that when I did a Google search earlier today for Marjorie Liu Monstress interviews, like the first 3 results were NPR interviews or like NPR articles. I think the first result was an NPR article, and I ended up reading 2 other articles that they had about Monstress, actually. So maybe retract that. But
yeah, list had some bangers. I'm just telling you.
Oh, I mean, I agree with you. I looked through the list. I have no shade to throw at the list. I just wouldn't be surprised if that's where you found it.
That's probably where it came from. Yeah.
Was this part of that Image Humble bundle that you picked up?
It was. Yes, it is.
Okay. And that recurs every once in a while, right?
Yes, I think it just was re-upped. I think it had almost the same thing. I think they added a couple extra volumes that had been made. I think it's still only Monstress 1 through 6 this last time.
That makes sense, because I think it's only on like volume 7 or 8 at this point.
I think 7 is released and 8 is in November, something like that.
I'm looking. Vamp. Volume 8, yeah, it's November 2023.
Yeah, so...
Got some badass cover art.
I mean, I don't know how it couldn't, because they really don't miss when it comes to the visuals of this comic.
So I guess, like, what made you want to talk about this comic? Like, what, when you read it, you were like, hey, Matt, this is a comic we should talk about because I like this. Like, what are the elements of this book that you really like?
World building. World building is what I like, and world building is what this comic does second best to the art of this book.
So this is going to be, I think, the crux of our entire conversation, actually. I was thinking about it. I read this book, and I was like, I know exactly why Pat likes this book, and it's because there's lore. There's so much lore.
It's so good.
Some might argue, Pat, maybe not me, might argue there's too much lore.
No, sir.
So I think, like, I liked this book too. I didn't love the book. On the second read, I liked it more. So I read it once all the way through. I think I was a little tired, so that might also be why I had an issue with it. But I reread it over the past couple days, and I think having already read it and had having pieces that I knew I was trying to fit together from the first read, I was like, oh, okay, this is this, and this is that. And like, I kind of, not everything. And I still think there are a decent amount of extraneous things that don't need to be in the book at the moment. But like, the second read was a little bit more coherent to me than the first read was, for sure.
I mean, I would agree that the first issue, maybe even first couple issues, are slow, and you can really tell it that they're trying to find their footing with this. I feel like at the end of it, they found solid ground, and I feel like it's a solid start.
I definitely am hooked by the end of the volume, for sure. Like and we'll get into the last page reveal within the first 5 minutes of the podcast, I guess. But like the last page reveal of chapter 6, end of volume 1, was a really good reveal, and it probably will pull me forward into reading Monstress Volume 2, even if I wasn't already hooked by the interaction between Micah and her monster, which I think is the real reason I'm going to keep reading the book.
Sure.
But like, man, especially on the first read and even on the second read, like every time I hit one of those lore dump pages at the end of a chapter with the cat explaining lore of the story, I was like, this feels like work.
Ah, you're
Not
kidding
gonna
me.
read
Those
these.
are those are literally my favorite
I
parts
know,
of the book.
I know they're your favorite pages because I knew it. I read it and I was like, Pat's gonna love this shit.
I fucking love that stuff. Like watching Attack on Titan, when they cut to commercial, they do like little flash screens of like in-world like research papers and stuff. Like, what are the Titans? There's different classes of like that shit. Is so good.
Oh yeah,
So
and like
good.
you're a Skyrim loading screen guy. I understand
Uh,
that. So there was actually a bit in one of the interviews I read today where Marjorie Liu was talking about how she consciously has to keep herself in this series, especially from just like tangenting off into different corners of the world that she's interested in. Like it's a
sure.
conscious choice in the writing that she has to like pull herself back. And I could definitely feel it throughout this entire book. Like I could feel the pulling because there's like, oh, I just like, so when I was putting my notes together today, I told you I hand wrote my notes in my notebook so that you unfortunately can't read them.
I'll have to
But
take it on your word. Yeah.
if you could
These
read them, you would
notes
see
exist.
that there are giant like sections where I just wrote in all caps, big like block letters with 3 exclamation marks, lore. Like whenever I came up against like a bit of the lore that I was like, I still don't understand what's going on here, or like I don't understand why this is here. I marked it with that so I could come back to it and try to be like, oh, okay, it did actually like match up in this chapter and I get what's going on. And there are still pieces that I know will pop up later, like they're there for a reason. It's not structured poorly. It's structured in a way
Yeah.
that I think I wouldn't structure it, but like
It's a bunch of hooks to keep the readers interested in getting
yeah,
answers.
but like I'm a guy who just wants like Micah's story itself was compelling enough to me to keep reading. And a lot of times the additional stuff was a distraction to me and actually like
Really?
stopped the flow or like blunted my interest in the
This is
story
so
a little
interesting
bit.
because I feel like Mike is the least interesting part of the story.
I think
I,
that's fair. She definitely has a little bit of protagonist syndrome. Like she's tough lady against the world, but like there's enough compelling stuff there. Like I really enjoy her interaction with the monster inside her. The monster is probably my favorite character in the book, honestly. Like I love that sass. I love that like I just want to be asleep. Stop bothering me, sass.
sure.
And like I like their interactions. Think Micah's interesting to me because so much of the world is like it seems like again this is all lore stuff. Like it's all different systems that are set up like in contrast and like against each other, and she doesn't really care about any of them. She's just trying to like cut through them to figure out what her own deal is. So that's
Yeah.
kind of interesting to me. But I definitely see where you're coming from of like if you are more interested in like the actual world building and the lore, like Micah doesn't really care about any of that stuff. So you'd rather be following like Mother Superior or like the Dawn Court or whatever, like which we
Yeah.
only get flashes of throughout this volume.
Yes. Those fucking amazing. Are you kidding me? Matt,
See,
there's a
whereas to me,
badass group of killer women called the Inquisitrixes. I mean, for God's sakes.
why are there 4 of them? There's so many characters in this book.
Inquisitrixes with like really badass names like Blade or
I had
my
so much
God, they're
trouble
so
on the
good.
first read, like remembering what each of their names were.
You don't need to remember their names. It's fine.
I mean, but I should be able to, Pat.
They're no. You just gotta enjoy what they are. You don't need to like know their independent, like individual motivations and shit.
Well, I mean, one of them's dead already, so it doesn't matter, right?
Oh, it's so good, man.
No, they are really cool, right? And so, like, this book looks so much like a JRPG, like a Japanese RPG.
Yeah.
That, like, again, I was like, I understand why Pat loves this shit. like I totally get it, and like I like it too. Like the art is stunning. Like,
I mean, the
stunningly
art is
beautiful.
top notch. Like the amount of details that Takeda is able to put into this. I'm glad that some of the images, like there's obviously like more sketchy parts to them. It's like, because if she actually put the amount of detail that she does into some of these, I don't know how she ever makes time to do anything else.
Yeah, and like we were talking about before we started recording, I had mentioned that like I'm pretty sure Sana like did everything in the art in this except for the lettering. Like, and that's so much work, even digitally. Like, especially given how intricate some of the designs are too. Like, the combination of iconography too, of like Egyptian stuff and Japanese stuff and Chinese
Yes.
stuff. Like, very cool. It's a very cool world. Like, no quibbles with the world being cool. I'm just not sure I
Matt,
need to know
the
everything about it
giant
immediately.
the giant ghost gods in the sky.
Really good. You haven't heard me argue about
What?
those.
No
Those I
one
think
knows
are
what they
necessary
are.
to the
They just
story.
like people just live in this world where these giant eldritch beings appear during the like dusk and dawn. That's insane. That's amazing.
Oh, see, I didn't even get that they only appeared during dusk and dawn.
I'm pretty sure it's like the transitory
I
times
mean,
that
that
they
would
show
make
up.
sense. Like you say it, and I'm like, oh yeah, that tracks. But like, no, that's not my quibble. Like, because again, that's something that's part of Micah's story, and so it makes sense to me for that to appear at this moment. But like, I don't need to know about the new prime minister. Like, I don't even really need to have seen the Dawn Court yet. I don't think.
Oh,
Like,
I do. Kidding
I
me?
know you do.
Because they showed us the one side with the what are they called?
The Dusk guy or the
No, the
Kumano?
Kumeya.
Yeah,
Kumeya and their religious order that
yeah.
controls that half of the faction. Then you got to know what the other side is.
It took me a
The
very
the
long time
arcanic.
actually to like unpick that the Kumeya were not like just the leaders of the human faction, that there was like an actual like
No, the
parliament or whatever
church.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It took me a little bit to figure that out. I think honestly, I'm trying to remember if I even did it on the first read or if it was a second read thing where I untangled that. But again, because that's probably because I bounced off some of those lore pages where that's
Well, I mean,
explained.
with how much I love Dune, the moment I saw them, I was like, oh, powerful magic nuns. Obviously, they actually run the government, and they're like they're Bene Gesserit. Okay, we're moving on.
Going, yeah. Yeah, that was actually a criticism of this book that I saw, was that there's not that much that's like new in it, which is not that big a deal to me because I think it does what it like the story does what it does pretty well, like quibbles again with like unnecessary world building elements aside. And I think honestly a big part of it gets to get away with being slightly standard because it's really pretty also.
Well, I mean, and they also put all that lore dump stuff literally as a bonus at the end. You don't need to read those. It's
Yeah, I
just there
do
for people
think
like
it
me.
does make sense, although I think it makes the reading much easier when you have read it, yeah, as a person who experienced both ways. So I don't know if I would say it's unnecessary, but I do think you can get away with skipping it if you do get to a page with 12-word balloons and just bounce off it like I did.
It's so good. It's got the juicy bits.
It does have a map in the back, Pat. You do love a map.
I know. I fucking saw it. It's like, yes, I knew it. We just need a glossary of terms and it'll be complete.
Glossary of terms actually would not have been unwelcome, honestly.
Right?
Given how many different things there are. Like there's so many different factions, and I'm like, well, you could have trimmed that down for story purposes, but I'm like, I do kind of love that it's messy too, because like real worlds are messy,
I
so
mean,
it
there's
does
only
make
like
you feel more lived in.
two
No,
or
there's
three.
like 5.
There's the
6?
Kumeya, the Arcanic, and then
Well,
the
there's
old
the 5
ones.
races first off, so that's 5 immediately.
Okay. The
I
cat
can break
race
this
isn't
down for
like.
you. The cat race isn't necessary? Is that what you're about to say?
Are
Because
you
I
saying
agree.
the humans, the ancients, the half human, half ancients, the cats, and the old ones? It's not all that complicated.
Okay, so that's 5. And then the
Yeah.
humans have the parliament and the Kumae, which are
Yeah.
different things.
Which the parliament is just.
Plus
It's
whatever's going
fine.
on with however Tuya is a baroness, apparently, which we'll get to that.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with Tua. I didn't gel with her.
Yeah, so let's just take that now, I guess, while we're here. If
Sure.
Tuya wants to kill Micah, why didn't she just do it years ago? Why didn't she just do it?
Yeah, I didn't quite understand.
I'm assuming that's something that'll be unpacked in volume 2 / whatever. Like,
I also don't
but
like
it
how like
doesn't make sense to me as it is right now.
she's got like a doll face that creeps me out. I don't know. It's not as
I think
humanized as
everyone kind of has like slightly, I don't know, like
but Tua like to a greater degree. Like
yeah, a
Micah
little bit.
sort of has it every once in a while, but Tua is always like big watery eyes, small button nose. It's
And
like,
it's just how she's supposed to look, man.
are
I don't
you
know.
like a hobbit? What's going on? So yeah, I don't know, like how she's a baroness of the Dawn Court. I
Is
don't
that
know
what
what
you're
the.
taking from it? Because
Well, I mean, she
I
was
still don't
working.
know.
Oh yeah, it's not the Dusk Court because she was
She's
working with the
working with
Dusk
the
Court.
Dust Court, yeah, but like there are obviously different factions working together here because there's a cat samurai with an eye patch also.
Yeah, fuck yeah, there is. What's a necromancer other than a really cute way of saying necromancer, but for a cat?
I mean, I assume a necromancer is just a cat that's a wizard.
Maybe,
I don't think
but
it's a necromancer.
no, because Ren, when he was bullshitting that one Inquisitrix that found him, said that I've raised the ancient dead or something like that was the last thing he says to her.
All right, well then I don't know, Pat. I just assumed it was a cat magician and it was a cute, like it was like, oh, it kind of sounds like necromancer.
Necromancer.
Yeah,
I mean, that's probably where the word came from, but I want
I
to
mean
know.
it's a solid word.
He doesn't raise any zombies while we see him, but who knows? Because he's referenced as a necromancer. The cat with the eye patch and the sword calls him a necromancer. So
Oh, so he actually is one. See, I missed stuff. There's so much stuff.
so much good stuff. Oh, and just yeah, you were saying, did we need to see the Dawn card? It's like, yes, we did. Do you know how cool that is? It's fuck. I got to see the Wolf Queen and like actually see an ancient. That's so cool, Matt.
I
That's
have
so
questions
cool.
about the ancients too. There's a bit of like there's a line where the Monkey King guy suggests that because you're immortal, you've forgotten what the past is like. And as a person who's been getting older, that hasn't really been my experience. I don't know.
I would
Like,
imagine that eventually. I don't know. I've been reading a bunch of books, and one of them was about an AI that gets given a body, and she's worried about accumulating more knowledge because she only has so much like storage space and doesn't want to have to forget things to learn new things.
okay, to be fair, I do actually have that argument with Kat, my wife, every once in a while of like, oh, I've just like processed too much information and I've forgotten all this other information. And she says that that's not a thing that can happen. So
I don't like if you live for like I don't even know how long or the ancients have been here. Million years, we'll say. I don't know, 100,000. Like eventually, you're just gonna not remember shit, right? Just like
true. I guess like extending all the way to like what a entire way of life was like is a little bit suspect to me. But
I
again,
don't know.
haven't lived for millions of years, so that's fair.
If you
Don't
live
know.
long enough, like I don't remember what my I don't know 12th year of life was, right?
I had to try to remember my high school GPA today, and I just tapped out on that one. So.
Right? I don't want to look too closely now because it's going to make me sad, but I probably don't have as much memories about the past as I think I do.
That's
So
fair.
yeah, I don't know. Just and also the designs of the ancients and then all the different like half breeds and stuff. Just fun. Just good times.
Yeah, the bit in the back where it does the like author and artist bios, and it talks about how Sana is or like was an artist for Sega and at a video. Oh
Mhm.
no, I think for Sega, a Japanese video game company is what it says here, and like is also doing trading card games in Japan. We gotta figure out what trading card game that is, Pat.
Right?
We gotta play it.
I also laughed when they had to explain what Sega was to people. It's like, are there people
Yeah,
who don't know?
that's actually why when I looked at it, I was like, oh, Sega and another video game company. I was like, oh no, it's explaining what Sega
Sega, the
is.
video game company.
Okay, Image Comics.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. But yeah, like no quibbles with the design work. No quibbles with the art on a whole. I would say like my two like criticisms there, again, as a person who will never come close to drawing anything near this good. But like my criticisms are like sort of the faces like we were talking about. They can get a little bit like weird and static and kind of like uncanny valley dollish at times. And like
Yeah.
some of them are same facey, but like that happens. And like not that many of them are same facey. Like there are definitely distinct faces between the characters. And my other quibble is that at sometimes it like descends more into illustration than comic book. And like what I mean by that is I was thinking about it versus I was thinking about it versus like Barrier, right? Like when we talked about Barrier, we talked about how Marcos Martin is like so good at like leading your eye across the page and making a page feel like a scene more than like just a page of pictures. And I think that does break down in here from time to time. Like there's a bit in issue 3 especially that I like looked at and I was like, well, it's not quite like we didn't quite get there, but that's all right. Like these things happen. And I will say, like, to come back around and like say something positive about the page structure, like I do really like how as it goes throughout the volume it gets kind of like more manga pagey in structure. Like I think that first issue is very much a blend between Eastern and Western comics and like still trying to find its footing like you were talking about. And I think as it goes on, like more and more of the page layouts remind me of manga page layouts that are just like slightly adapted for the taller format. Like a lot of the slanted panels are things I feel like I'd find in a manga. Like the pages that have just like small inset panels with character reactions are so manga. And like a lot of the scenes where it's just like a repeated shot of a character, it's like face or doing an action from the same POV are also like feel very manga to me. So that was kind of cool. Like I'm looking at pages in issue, this must be 5, yeah, and like so many of the panel borders are like have that like slight slant to them that like Western comics don't have as much and so many manga do. I think because that's part of the way that those books do lead the eye.
Sure. And yeah, I mean, I didn't quite get the side story that they're going for with the brother sister, the Kamea nun with the arcanic brother.
I don't know how I was supposed to remember who that dude was. I got to that page at issue 6 the first time and I was like, is this important? It seems like it's important from the way it's drawn and how much space he's taking up on the page, but I have no idea who this dude is. And so I flipped back through because it's like, it must be someone from earlier in the book. And there, like I said, there are 50 characters in here. And I got all the way back to like page 4 of issue 1 and I was like, oh, there he is. This unnamed guy.
Gotta pay attention, Matt. Come
There's
on.
so many pages in this book, Matt. This is a 192 page book because I think I was listening to an interview with Marjorie Liu like around the time that her and Sana's more recent series, The Night Eater, started. And she was talking about how like basically they were trying to figure out how to break the first issue up of Monstress up into like different issues. And eventually they were just like, fuck it, we'll put out a 44-page book. They're like 60 pages. I don't even know how big the first chapter of this is, but it's at least double-sized. It might be triple-sized, honestly. Like, and I think that's probably... Oh, no, this is a $10 first volume. Because Image does so many of their first volumes as $10 just to get people in, which is such a smart move, and I wish goddamn DC and Marvel would do that. I can't believe this thick hunk of book that I could throw at someone and hurt them with it is only $10.
It's so good. What are your thoughts on Kippa?
Kippa's alright. I think Kippa's I like that trio of characters as the trio of characters we're following through the story. Because I think, like, you were kind of talking about how you don't really, like, Micah, or, like, is the least interesting character to you. And I think she does kind of have that protagonist problem a little bit of just being, like, a little bit too tough and like kind of like
got the angst.
Yeah. Like I get that. So like Kippa's fine. She's the cute anime sidekick. It's okay. Like I think she does some cool stuff. She's got good lines every once in a while. Like she's got the "I'm following you because you're good at killing" line in issue 1. She's got the like slightly jaded or like the slightly ironic interactions with the cat in issue 6 where she's like, loyalty is the best thing, isn't it? And he's just like, yeah, this is fine. I did actually want to talk about, like, in issue 1, there's that setup that, like, cats are the least trustworthy creatures in this world. And you're like,
oh, yeah.
Well, maybe that's just, like, what they say because they're humans and whatever. But, like, the cat does betray her.
There's probably some truth to it.
Again, nothing in the book feels like it's there extraneously. It just feels like sometimes there's a bit too much. Like, clearly it's all going in a direction and it knows what it's doing. Like, that's not my issue. But, like...
Sure.
I don't think I need the reveal of who I think is Micah's sister. Yeah, that
no, that's fucking awesome. You kidding me? Come on. I don't think it's a sister. I think it's her aunt. I think it's her aunt.
All right, hang on, because I'm gonna flip to that because I saw that in your notes and it's like I'm pretty sure it's a sister, but it would make more sense for it to be an aunt because I was like,
Well, I
how did
think it's
he have a
because
sister?
the Monkey King isn't referring to Micah when he says sister, he's referring to Moriko.
Oh, gotcha. That would make sense actually. That he would be referring to the mother and not Micah, because that really confused me. I was, and then, oh, okay, so the monster's just saying he could pass into the aunt because they're still the same
There's another
bloodline.
bloodline. Yeah. And
Okay.
so does that mean so okay, you see in my notes I've taken screenshots and stuff. There's that one
Yep.
picture of Micah in her like dream world or headspace where she's looking at the Egyptian like iconographs of seems to be the shaman empress like combining with an old one.
Okay, so you do think that's the shaman empress because it's some sort of descendant of Micah's, right?
I'm pretty sure that Anubis eared figure was said to be the shaman, like the shaman empress.
I will take your word for it because that's one of the things I missed.
Well, if you look at
it's true.
Yvette's room when Micah first like accosts her, there's a bunch of like icons and stuff in the background, lots of Anubis busts around and lots of singular creepy eyes all everywhere. So I think from that, I think the Anubis woman is the shaman empress.
Shaman empress, which would make Micah a descendant of the shaman empress.
Yeah, because I don't know, like there's one panel where Micah in this dream world is staring at the statue, the Anubis shaped statue, and she says mother, and she's like crying or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So many pages, so many things, but I'm pretty sure that happens. So I'm thinking she either sees the statue and thinks it looks close enough to be her mother. I can't imagine that her mother was the shaman empress herself.
I think
That
the bit
doesn't
where she
quite
says
make
mother is
sense.
actually like the monster's hair covering it. And that she thinks maybe it's her mother, but with really long hair. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah,
But
I wasn't
anyways,
quite sure.
this all at
So
least
like,
somewhat tracks to me so far.
because I don't know if it was the interstitial lore dump stuff. They talk about the shaman empress being like the most powerful being, like was even more powerful than the ancients. And I think that makes sense if the shaman empress combined with an old one. So it was both the power of this new race of human and ancient combined with an old one, which is why she
Yeah.
was so powerful.
Which that's something I was thinking about today, actually, given that like so much of this world is predicated on weird prejudice against hybrids, like to then
Yeah.
get a tribrid essentially, like that feels like a big deal. So I assume that will be like that concept will be a big player going forward. That like Micah is not even really just an Arcanic at this point. She's like
He's a direct descendant of the Empress. I don't know why her blood or power is more powerful. Like, doesn't the monster say something like, why are you... Something about her being more powerful or having more ability than
I don't know if it's
past
that she's more
descendants.
powerful, but like she's definitely like
More attuned or something like that? I don't know.
and I think maybe part of it is the mask they were saying, but the
Which
mask is weird.
I don't understand the mask fully. Like, it's another separate entity to the monster.
So I think the mask is. So this is my take on it. Again,
Okay.
I don't. If my take is incorrect, I would be not surprised at all, given that I was struggling to keep up here and there. But like my take on it is that the person who was Micah's ancestor, who we've now decided is the shaman empress, and I'm good with that. I think that's okay. This is the kind of like deep lore shit I knew we were gonna
so
get
good.
out.
Oh, I love it.
Again, I'm here for it. Like I'm fine with unpacking it. I just like one of my recommendations for when we get to that section is going to be like if you bounced off the lore in this, but you want
no.
No, this is your time, Pat. So we're here for this. This is what the rest of the podcast is we're just going to unpack all this nonsense.
It's like board games, Matt. Setting up the board game is just as much fun as playing the board game, if not more so.
So weird
go ahead.
tangent quick is
Yeah.
my nephews who were here visiting for a few days decided that they wanted to play a board game before they left yesterday.
Yeah.
And so they unpacked King of Tokyo and figured out how to play it themselves, and it was wonderful. Like I was in the middle of having Kat make dinner, and they were like, "We're gonna figure out how to play this," and I was like, "Cool, yes, let's do that," because I don't have to teach it. So we've got the Shaman Empress, and I think somehow the Shaman Empress had like made contact with this old one who was like somewhat.
If you look at that hieroglyph, if you look at the hieroglyph, I'm looking at it now. I'm wondering if that like weird scarab-looking thing with an eye on it is that another mask?
I think that is the mask.
Is the mask? It's the completed mask.
Yeah, it's the completed mask. And so
maybe the mask somehow facilitates the joining of the two of them?
Yeah, it's like a tunnel to the old god dimension or whatever that allows the joining to happen. But I think that's what happened to Mother Superior, is she put on the mask and it didn't quite
changed.
work. It didn't quite work the way it's supposed to. Like they didn't become like a hybrid. They became some sort of weird thing that they were like the old one has mostly just is wearing.
I think she just is, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And like I think Yvette probably also has worn the mask and didn't get to finish hers, and that's why she's like searching for her beloved, who is also one of the old ones. Like the mask is definitely like some sort of conduit to make joinings happen.
Okay.
The only one
that's
successfully happened so far is the half wolf one. And
so
that's my take on that.
So okay, then my question is, where and when did that happen? Was that in the tomb or was that in Constantine?
So I think so this is where it gets fuzzy for me, actually. I was trying to figure this out earlier today.
Yeah.
Constantine to me was possibly Mother Superior's putting on the mask, and like whatever energy resulted from that blew up the goddamn city.
Well, Micah said, like, Micah refers to herself being there as well, though. So, like, Micah was there and did something because she's talking to Tua and she's like, remember Constantine or something. So, like, I think she was involved with something that happened. I don't think
she even remembers exactly what happened or what she did there. But, like, so the reason I think it has something to do with the Mother Superior is because in that really cool, actually, sequence where Micah and the monster are like reliving her memories, and they're illustrated in like ghostly black and white while they're replaying all the things. And then there's like the really cool scene where Ghost Micah is like integrated with like memory Micah, and it's like half black and white, half color. Cool bit. And there's also the red, white, and black splotch thing there, the like feathery splotch whatever thing, and that shows up in the Constantine scenes a lot. And that is the Mother Superior's like iconography, like that's her cape. So I feel like she and the monster she's connected to or both were there, and maybe Micah is the reason that got fucked up. I don't know.
That's interesting.
But like I don't know, like I don't think I was trying to decide like if Micah has like seen or put on the mask before, and I think maybe, but she forgot. But I have not figured that out yet. There's still a lot of missing pieces, and I think that's on purpose. But I also am frustrated.
I like the cape thing. That's nice. I like that.
Yeah, that part makes sense to me. That part I think I'm locked in on.
The Mother Superior, like turning her nails into tentacles. Fuck, that's a really.
That was a good panel. Yeah.
Oh god.
That was actually one of the very manga-esque panels to me of like it's showing her face, and then the next one is like the same shot, but her hand shows up outside of it and it's doing the tentacles. It's like, oh, that's a cool like actually combination of sort of Eastern and Western styles a little bit, but.
And she takes her mask off.
Yeah. That was cool. Cool bit. But so we're singing, because like part of it for me was like the monster definitely has like strong feelings for whoever summoned it through the mask, and I think kind of romantic feelings. At least
I think the monster fell in love with the emperor. Yeah, the shaman empress.
Okay.
I think they had a relationship. Because he's talking to the statue like oh, we're really in it now, aren't we? Or like oh, I lost you, but like pining for her.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely the same read on that. I was just trying to figure out how far in the past that was, like what descent or like what ancestor of Micah's that would be. it being the literal actual shaman empress is probably correct. If not explicitly told already, like, you're probably right.
I mean, just judging from, there's the hieroglyphs we see in the background of whatever that space is, the like mental space that this demon occupies. Oh, so good.
So if we're just knocking out lore questions,
Here's
one I've got for you. So the monster at one point, like, basically taunts Micah with, like, you've been in the presence of 2 arcanic lords.
Yeah, what was that?
Do you know who the second one is? Because I did. I was like, maybe Pat knows who the second one is, because I missed it.
Haven't, like, gone back to, like, double check. But yeah, I don't... It needs to be an animal-looking person, right?
Does it? I don't know.
Maybe. I guess not, because they do say that some arcanics look totally human.
It cuts from that to the white-haired lady, Aetna is her name. Like, when the monster says that, it cuts to her, and we find out eventually that she, like,
Atena,
she is an arcanic, right?
Yeah, she's...
Or is she not, and he is?
I think both of them are. I think her brother is more animalistic than she is. But I think they both are.
So it could be her?
Maybe. I don't like that as much.
I don't could either.
Be. Like I say, that was the one side plot that was like, okay, where is this going?
Well, the thing is also, I don't really get what an arcanic lord is, because it's talking about how they're like a direct descendant of the ancient or whatever at one point, but then later on, Corvid, that's not his name, Corvus, Birdman? Harvey Birdman, attorney at Axe.
The Crow Lord, yeah.
Yeah. Says he was, like, born an orphan to some random soldier. So, like, how does this work? I don't get it.
I think the random soldier did the nasty with an ancient.
No, the soldier was the arcanic, I thought. Hang on. Now we...
He's
so much of this podcast is just going to be you cutting... like, when I'm just like, turn to the correct page where this lore was explained.
I'm pretty sure they say that he is the child of an ancient. Like, he is the next generation removed from...
I was born an orphan, son of a common soldier who died fighting the humans. So the common soldier is...
I mean, his father might be an ancient.
Ancient?
His father might be an ancient, and his mother was a soldier.
Born an orphan, son of a common soldier. I don't know.
I mean, his mother could have been a common soldier. That's another thing. Like, I really shouldn't have been as ignorant to it, but reading the interviews, it was pointed out, like, this comic barely has any male characters in it. Was that a choice that you made? Like, obviously it was, but I literally did not notice that until reading that interview after having read this, I don't know, 2 or 3 times.
I mean, I noticed it, and it was like, so part of the reason I was interested to read this is I've actually tried to read it once before, and I bounced off of it.
The first few issues
at the same time. So I think actually, I was thinking about this today. Issue 1, I think, not really any notes. Issue 1 I thought was good. It's like issue 2 or 3 where I can start feeling that thing that Marjorie Liu was talking about in that interview where she's like, I could go in 18 different directions, but I'm going to keep it here on these rails, except not this bit's here. Like, that's where the world starts to expand to me in a way that is both interesting, but also counterproductive to me wanting to read the story at the same time.
It was the hazy flashbacks to her and Tua in like a random camp before she infiltrates the city. It's like, I don't really know who Tua is. I don't understand how they got to this place that they're starting. Like, it was just a strange point to flash back to.
Yeah, so much of the world's lore I do actually kind of understand now, and so much of Micah's background I still don't. And in my writer brain, I would flip that. Again, not gonna argue. I haven't won an Eisner, but like, yeah, to me, like, I was actually thinking about today, because again, with my writer brain, I think about, like, could you just cut this bit? Like, could you cut this bit and get away with it? And I was thinking about that with relation to the flashbacks. And I think the only thing you lose is that issue 6 reveal stuff, which I think is actually good. So I don't know if you can cut it. But other than that, like, there's not a lot to it there.
Yeah, I don't quite... The background of Tua, like, how they came to be that way, like the wooden arm that Micah has, and like obviously Tua's like kitted out with a horse and like camping gear and stuff. Like, where did that come from? From being like, we see Micah somehow escaping the tomb, and then I guess she gets picked up by slavers or something, and that's where she meets up with Tua.
Constantine must also be later. Maybe they were slaves in Constantine, and then that happened, and that's how they escaped.
Somehow, something happens in the chaos. She escapes, but then
Yeah,
Tua would also have had to survive what happened.
Well, that's
maybe,
the thing.
Maybe. Oh, they're the two that are missing.
Yeah,
oh, fuck!
Like there
we go.
Were 8 survivors, and we found 6 of them, and the other 2 are our main characters, or at least one of them is our main character, and one of them is our main frenemy. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
I think that's it, because that's what I decided earlier today when I was rereading it in the
So, like, yeah, they flash back to Tua, and obviously they're trying to make a big deal of it by revealing that she has a higher standing in the dusk court, or maybe I don't know.
Somewhere, yes.
She has a barony somewhere. Yeah. I would like Tua. Not my favorite character. Like,
we don't really know
take her or leave her,
right? Like, she's just kind of there, and we don't really know her motivations. And again, like, what I have seen of her is weirdly, like, at odds with itself, because she's so quick to be like, yeah, the council's going to kill her, and that's fine. But also, she's been palling around with her for years.
Yeah.
So why not just do it then? If you, like, there's a disconnect there that, like, I think will be resolved. I'm kind of interested in, but also I just feel like it doesn't make sense right now at the same time. So
there's a whole thing with the slave master woman. They give a name in one of the flashbacks, but I don't remember, the one that smokes and like is eating the noodles that she gives. Ilsa, yes. Like, that's a character that that's unnecessary background. I don't think her history is going to make any kind of real dent to the story. I think that could have done without. I don't know who her daughter is, or how Micah knows her daughter, or knows how to play on that relationship.
This is what I'm saying, man. Like, there's so many spots where, again, the real world is messy, so I'm okay with messy to a point, but like, you could smooth an edge off, and like, the story just goes a little bit snappier, and I don't think you lose much yet. Sure. I mean, obviously the world is being built out to a place where like a lot of this stuff is going to tie together and be important. Like, again, I trust that is true, but at the same time, it also does feel like people are just saying things to say things sometimes to get them into the plot.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know if you saw, I posted the panel where they talk about the Crow Lord's background, the demons talking about him.
He's the child of an ancient in full power. But
which makes me think that he's a direct child of an ancient. Like I said, the ancient could be male.
The other parent, yeah.
And the soldier could be a female soldier. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
Or maybe ancients procreate differently than humans do, and doesn't matter what gender they are.
The lower pages.
I don't know.
Because there was that whole thing about the first hybrid baby. Well, I don't know if it was the first hybrid baby. Oh, the first one was the
Shaman Empress was the first.
And then I was reading about the one that the Kumae executed and then dumped in front of its father's house.
Yeah, not great.
Yeah, not fantastic. So what else do we want to unpack here, Pat? While we're lore diving.
I don't. It's so much fun. Like the Kumeya and their like technology, like the really horrid, the fact that they use biological magical energy to work their magics, that's some cool shit.
I will say I had fun trying to put the pieces together on the second read. Like, it was a little bit of a chore in the way that this sort of thing is always a chore, but I do have like a little spark of that same thing that you have in me, where I'm like, I want to figure out how this all goes together. So like, it wasn't unfun to go in and try to put it all back and like into a coherent thing that made sense.
Like the ilium, the innate magical density of like the literal bones of these half-breed ancients is what, like, it's the whole crux of the all conflict in this world, is that the humans who aren't born with magic have found this substance that allows them to have that power. Like, It's so good. It's like, oh, that's why shit's going down.
That's a lore page that I think you did actually have to read because otherwise you kind of get it, but it.
I think you can, I mean, the first few issues you can see what's going on.
No, but I don't think you get quite how big a deal it
I
is.
guess not. Like, it doesn't give you the scale of it, but I think you can generally get the gist. That poor Cyclops kid did not have a good time.
Didn't have a good time. Lots of kids didn't have a good time in this book.
No, and that poor handless kid that she just devours just a snack on the road. Oh.
There's so many cuts in this book that are cuts from a bit where an action scene is about to happen at the end of an issue, and then it just happened in the space between issues without you actually seeing it. And I'm okay with it because usually they sped the plot up to the bits that were actually interesting. You don't see her eat a kid, that's fine. You don't see her fight that giant assembly of Dawn Council and cat people thing. That one I maybe would have liked to see, but that's fine because we were getting a big action piece in that issue anyways of all the Dawn Council people versus the Kumehae. So
oh, the Dusk Council? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Sorry, the Dusk Council. Lord Corvid.
Oh, that is true. The eye patch cat's like, oh, we lost a few of my best warriors. So I guess she fucked them up a little bit before they stuck her in a sarcophagus.
Don't even see it.
This badass steampunk sarcophagus that can keep gods asleep. Shit, yeah. That's fucking awesome.
And kind of keep gods asleep. Sort of.
Hey, I mean, they're doing the best they can.
Yeah.
They're pumping all that steam through. I mean, there's only so much they can do.
Magical bone energy.
So
taking the carbon out of the earth and putting it into sarcophagus.
Did you see they make a big deal about the Crow Lord's weapon? What do they call it?
Night Cleaver.
Something like that. It's a cool word name thing.
Pat, I just passed the page where
Night Cutter
literally throws a unicorn horn through a lady.
Yes! It's so cool. You don't even notice that they're unicorns at first. And then it's like, oh my God, someone ripped that horn off.
Oh yeah, it did have a horn.
Oh shit.
It also wasn't the same color in the previous page because I think the lighting was a little different. So I had to do a double take, but also good page.
Fucking snapped that horn off. So cool. The designs are just so cool in this.
Yes,
I'm looking at the Dawn Court people with the Wolf Queen who has 9 tails, which I really appreciate. The Kitsune, the 9 tails. It's nice. And then the Warlord also has tails. I think she has 4. No, it looks like 3. Still, that's so her supposed aunt. It's so cool. These designs are badass. And then looking at the Night Cutter of the Crow Lord, it's got a demon eye in it. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah.
So
maybe the Dusk people are more in tune with the old gods, and that's why they've broken. Although they want to kill Micah, so I don't know.
Yeah, or does the Night Cutter use demonic energy to slice people? I don't know. It's cool. But then his cape also is that the symbol of the Dusk Court? Is an eye?
I actually really speaking of eyes. It's a few pages after that, the bit where Micah's talking to the monster, and it just kind of comes out of her arm as one little eye.
A little squiggle.
Talking in its nice, teal, I guess maybe that is word balloon. The letter, I like a lot of the lettering choices in this too. I did only realize today that the monster is every single time speaking in that same weird glyphic language that Mother Superior uses when she resurrects Yvette. It's just that we only see it as English because Micah understands what it's saying.
And somehow Kippa too.
Yeah, because Kippa also has Old Arcanic blood, or not Old Arcanic blood, Ancient blood. I don't know. All these words sound the same, so who knows? What's Morphosis, Pat? Tell me in 10 words.
I think it was just a cool thing in the moment, and I don't think it's gonna ever be brought up again.
She's gonna transform into a snake at some point. A Medusa, maybe. I don't know. I'm looking at the panel you put in your notes where it talks about the council forbidding Morphosis.
Yeah, I don't like Morphosis and the fact that her teeth are extended. Is she a vampire? Is that what, she's an energy vampire? I don't know.
Oh, maybe.
But
have to read volume 2 to find out, I guess.
There's no indication anywhere else that humans have that. The only human power they keep repeatedly saying is that sometimes women develop telekinesis, like mind reading and what foresight.
The
They can
ability
see
to
the
see the
future.
future. Yeah, which she definitely has. Oh
Yeah,
gosh, I'm forgetting her name now. Yvette's daughter. But she definitely has the ability to see the future because she tells that guy he's gonna die in bed with another man or whatever, or his wife's gonna kill
yes, at
him.
the
Did she find
beginning. Yeah,
him? Yeah, which was a good scene. Like that's the thing is there's so many like I liked most if not all the characters in here, but because there are 50 characters, you don't get to spend time with as many of them as much as I'd like outside of like our core trio, I guess.
I
But
guess.
I
But
mean
like,
that's also typical fantasy book thing of like
yeah.
there's a bunch of side characters and weird side quests and stuff. No one goes to play blackjack for days in this, Pat. I don't understand why you liked
Well,
it.
they aren't an 8-year-old boy trying to save the world. If they were, they would get sidetracked in a casino for a good year and a half, but come out rich.
Cooney reference for those of you in the know out there in listener land. But
I had so many of those health pots. It was great.
it does look so much like a Japanese RPG in like in very good ways. Like it's like it's Final Fantasy as shit, which
Heck
is nice.
yeah. It's funny that like in your synopsis and a lot of other ones, they like focus on the steampunk. And that like was such a minor thing to me. Like I had forgotten that it was even like,
I actually
oh
agree.
yeah, I guess there is steampunk elements to it, but
I put that in there because it was on the back. It's in the description on the back cover, and I was writing
oh
my
okay.
description up quickly this morning, or like on break from work today. So I kind of just like relied on some of the stuff they'd already written about it. But I actually agree with you. Steampunk was like the least important word out of the description of
They
beautiful dark
have
steampunk fantasy.
airships and there's a cool looking
You
sarcophagus,
gotta
and
have
that's about
blimps,
it.
baby. Gotta have blimps. Otherwise, what are you doing?
It's so good. Hitting all the right notes, let me tell you. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I,
don't know.
I enjoyed it, and I do think like as much as I decry some of the lore dump hooks, like some of them are the things that are pulling me forward. Like I will be putting Volume 2 on hold from the library after this. Like I do want to read it and keep going with the story. So obviously successful, and
I
like
just the world is so those giant ghosts just make me feel so warm and fuzzy, man. I don't know. Just
I mean,
like
so part of the reason the book's on my radar is like the year that the series debuted, like it won a bunch of awards. Like I think the series itself got best new series in the Eisners, which is like comics Oscars essentially. Like I think Marjorie Liu got best writer that year and was the first female writer to win that, which is kind of
that's
absurd.
upsetting, but that's okay.
It
Yeah.
was like 2017 or 2018, so and I think Sana might have also won an award. These
I
might be
hope
things I
so.
look up for the show notes, but
She definitely deserves it. I mean, goddamn.
so it's a big deal. It's a big deal book. It's been on my comics radar for a while, and I'm glad to finally filled in that gap. So
Yeah, no, it really feels like a me kind of book for sure.
yeah, no, again,
For
like
sure.
flipped it open and I was like, okay, it's very pretty. It's got snarky ladies who feel like they're kind of being bitchy at each other. And then I was like, oh, there's too much lore. This is why Pat likes this. There's too much going on.
It's so good. It's a world that has life to it, you know?
No, I mean, again, like I'm the guy who keeps making you read like bullshit superhero comics that have 50 years of lore that they don't even bother to explain. So like I'm not gonna be a giant hypocrite here and like complain to you about it too much.
There's so many comics where outside of like what the events and actions of the heroes and the villains, like what's the world? What is a normal person in Gotham doing on a day to day? I don't know. But
To
like
see that
from this
sometimes.
and like the information they've given, yeah, they're in blimps. They're blimping it up. That's all I
Yeah.
know. From this, you can generally like glean like, okay, you get where the sides are coming from. I don't just the depth to it is just so good, man.
Yeah.
It's so good. And
Yeah.
I can understand it's a lot for people who aren't wanting that or aren't accustomed to that kind of detail. But goddamn, it's so good to finally have something that has something you can sink your teeth into.
This is true. I do feel like I could have reread this book again, like a third time, and come away with like even more of it. Like
But isn't
even
that
more of
great,
understanding
though?
what's going on. No, yeah,
That's
I agree. Like that's what I'm saying is like I appreciate something, especially with comics, because usually there's such a quick read for me, especially
yeah.
that like a lot of the value for me is rereading them. So it's nice to get a book that like really understands that that's a lot of the value of the book is like
Mhm.
people are going to reread it, especially this thing. Like you can reread it for the lore, you can reread it just to stare at the art.
For sure. I think we've covered all of my questions in hand. Oh, this Easter egg scene is. Do you think this is a nod
The
to
saga
Saga?
scene, the lion cat scene. Yeah,
Yeah.
I also wrote that in my notes. Unclear. I
I don't
wouldn't be
know. I don't know
surprised if
how
yes,
that couldn't
wouldn't be
be.
surprised if no.
It's a complete like large panel of the cat character looking at the main character and saying one word, which is liar.
But it's
It's
not
hard.
lying.
Lion Cat says liar, doesn't she?
No, it's just lying.
Are you sure?
I am 99.2% sure.
I'm gonna have to go through every
Every
single.
single volume of Saga.
All right, fair enough. I think it is, which made me laugh.
So, Pat,
Uh,
given that you enjoyed this book more than me,
so good.
what would you recommend to someone who liked this book?
Oh, I'm glad you asked, Matt, because I have a handful of stuff. I'll start with my anime and then go to the comics so that you can lead off with comics. I assume you have
I
your
mean,
own.
I only ever do comics, baby. I'm
Oh,
a purist.
a purist. Yes, I'm sorry. Well, I'm gonna go to the weeb corner, which is my corner, and I'm gonna pull
I
back the
mean,
tarp.
the anime you're listing here, at least the first two, I know are comics. So,
Oh, for sure. I'm sure all of these have manga that was they're either based on and then were animated from. I don't know many anime that were created first and then made into manga. It does happen, but yeah, I assume that all these. I know, like you're saying, the first two for sure have manga that then were adapted. So enough beating around the bush. The whole main character having a demon inside of them that they have to like negotiate with really struck me as Naruto.
yep, now that you say it, that's pretty obvious. I even was looking at your notes and I saw it and I hadn't made that connection yet, but yep, that's nail on the head.
The Nine Tails, yeah.
Yeah.
Full Metal Alchemist, I was getting lots of just like the world, the depth of it, and like the machinations. It's sort of spoilery to get into like why it's
Oh,
as
Pat, don't
similar
spoil
as
it
it
for me.
is.
I'm reading it.
I'm not
Pat.
going to, but it let me tell you, it gets closer to Monstress towards the back half of it. Anyways, Full
That is
Metal
one we
Alchemist,
will
it's real good.
probably read for the podcast at some point because
I may have bought
I like that book.
I may have bought the next three hardcover
Next three, I was
volumes.
like, oh, I'm probably gonna buy the next one this month.
There was a sale at Target for buy two get one free. It's like, okay,
Oh,
twist
I
my
mean
arm.
that's fair, man. I've done that at Barnes and Noble so many times over the course of my life.
So I got all three for like $10 each. It's like, deal, do it. Anyways, so Full Metal Alchemist, probably one of my favorite animes. I'm sure the manga is equally good. It's great. Parasite is an anime that I watched. It's the premise. It's not a demon. It's an alien that like possesses the hand of a human teenager, and they do the whole like the hand itself becomes the parasite, and it does that whole like stretchy thing and like talks to him with like the cutesy little like eye poking out and then talking to him. It reminded me a lot of Parasite.
I'm looking at the cover to the fourth volume of the manga. It has a weird looking hand.
It's a strange anime manga. I liked it up until the last bit of it, which is a common thing with anime, I feel, but it's good up until it gets weird. And then yeah, I felt really strong Ghibli influence in this with like I was saying, the giant dead gods in the sky. Really felt Princess Mononoke, Nausicaa, even a little castle in the sky with like the ancient civilization that's floating up there with like the giant robots.
Yeah.
I got a lot of that. So yeah, Ghibli's great. Just watch everything Ghibli.
Yeah, the thing that always used to hook me with like Japanese RPGs, and like I'm thinking specifically right now of like Final Fantasy X, because that's one of the ones that I played the most, is like the summonings. Like the summonings are always so cool, and like they're why I played the game, is like I want to summon giant spirit monsters. So like the old ones in this have the same vibe in a way that gives me like a lot of the same energy and like trips a lot of the same triggers. So I
Yeah,
get where you're going.
Final Fantasy 16 just came out today, actually, at time of recording. So hey, I hear it's great. It's written by the same people who do the story for Final Fantasy 14, which I fucking love. So fingers crossed, it's just as good. And then comic suggestions. Die, just for the world building and like the complexity of stuff. I felt a kinship between these two. I don't know if you agree, Matt, but
Yeah, I think it's similar for sure. Like it's weird in that it's about real people. Not real people, but you know what I mean?
I
Like
mean,
it's like set in like the real world. So like or
sure.
like it's set with like quote unquote real world protagonists. So I don't know. It's interesting. Like I'm
But
not
like
sure
the
if you read.
different factions and stuff playing off of each other and like
Yeah,
the
I'm just
machinations
trying to
there.
decide like if you would actually. I mean, the art is very like similar in a way, actually, like stylized. Like I think, oh god, I'm blanking on the dye artist's name now. Stephanie Hans. Like Stephanie Hans stuff also has that same illustrated quality that I think
I
Sana's
think if
stuff
you'd like
has too.
Monstress, I think you'd like Die. I think
Yeah,
there's
I would
enough.
certainly think you should give it a chance.
Yeah. And then I was just trying to think of other like, oh, these comics have great world building. If you like the world building in this, you should try these. And Lazarus came up.
I
But I
mean,
was
Lazarus
like,
is real good. Completely different beast for sure.
it's not fantasy, it's more sci-fi, post-apocalyptic,
It's
corpo families running the world kind
less
of
and
thing.
less sci-fi every year, but there's
Oh, really?
that.
I haven't read past, I
No,
don't know.
not in that it's becoming less sci-fi. In that like
Oh, it's
the
becoming
world is
real
catching up
life.
to it.
Yes, indeed.
Lazarus is one that, well, it's like actually, like, well, it has been running as my favorite ongoing comic series, probably full stop. I can't actually recommend in good conscience at this point because it's like
Really?
the release schedule has been so start and stop and start and
Oh,
stop and start and
sure.
stop. And I, like, they said they're going to come back and do more. They don't have a date, and that's fine. But, like, I don't know if I even have the confidence that they're going to finish it at this point.
Well, I
So
mean,
we'll see.
Monstress isn't a finished story either, so.
Yeah, but Monstress is arriving like clockwork every year to the point where these people could spin off and do another project on top of it and release that on time. Like Monstress is gonna finish and wrap itself up. So
Fair enough.
Lazarus, I'm less sure on. Yeah, I was actually gonna recommend. So I did read the first volume of Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda's new series that they started, which is a series like a trilogy of graphic novels. And that one's actually set in the quote unquote real world, but also still has demons. And it was very good. Like I enjoyed that one more than I enjoyed this one, although I enjoyed both. And it's called The Night Eaters, and the first volume is oh god, like Cat like couldn't look at this book without laughing because the subtitle for the first volume is She Eats the Night. It's just like She Eats the Night. But like it's about a family of like the parents are Chinese immigrants and then they have kids and the kids are running a restaurant and going from there they run into a haunted house where there's demons and to get like say anything else would be spoilers.
Sure.
It's very good. Also very pretty. I think like as much as Sana's art is very good in this, I think the flow of that book, from what I remember, is actually a little bit better. So like that was like it handles one of the issues I had with this book. So I liked that one. I would recommend that if you like this, you pick that up because it plays around with some similar themes too.
Sure.
And then as far as like more of a fantasy thing, right now I'm recommending whenever there's a chance Kaya that's also coming out from Image Comics. And it's like a well, it's not like a post-apocalyptic sci-fi, but like there's like a war going on and it's a sci-fi thing and like it's about this girl and her little brother who is like supposedly the chosen one and she's like protecting him and running away from like again their homeland was attacked kind of the same way that like there was a war in this story that happened in the past that we don't know everything about. And to me, the world building of that one is a little bit more like you just kind of poke at it when it comes up. Like you run into things as the characters run into things, and it's like what you need to know is shown, and what isn't you don't need to know like isn't really explained to you, or like you don't really need to know it yet. And it goes at a little like. So I was thinking about how the lore dump pages in this are pages that have like 15 dialogue balloons on them, and every single dialogue balloon is a paragraph.
Uh-huh.
A typical Kaya page will be like 6 panels, 1 to 2 characters in it, 1 balloon with like 1 word to 2 sentences. Like that's it. That's a page, and like it's very simple. It kind of reminds me of Bone in that way.
Oh, sure.
I'm really enjoying it, and it's got a similar vibe to this of like a fantasy world where there has been conflict in the past, and you're kind of examining the fallout of that as it goes forward. So
Cool.
that's one that's also on my short list for us to get to for the podcast sometime. But yeah, otherwise, I think that will do it for our discussion of Monstress. As always, if you want to get in touch with Pat or myself, you can email us at waitingonthetrade@gmail.com. You can also find more comics-related goodness at mattreadscomics.com. Pat, I did like this book.
Good.
I'm glad you brought it. Like again, like I said, it's one of my big, like recent comics blind spots that I've been meaning to fill in, anyways. So it was good to get to read it. It was good to get to discuss it with you. I think I got a lot more out of it discussing it with you than I would have gotten out of it just reading it by myself. Like I think we were able to unpack a lot of stuff I had questions about, and also I was very much more motivated to read it because I knew like about 6 pages in that you were gonna love it and we would have a good conversation about it.
Nice. And I did. It's my kind of shit, man. It's real good.
Well, maybe at some point in the future we'll discuss volume 2, or heck, maybe even the last volume.
The
Maybe
last one when it comes out, yeah.
we can do a die on it where we do the first one and the last one. That might be interesting.
Yeah.